Hi everybody, welcome to another youth study. I don't know if you can hear that noise in the background, but if you can, well, it is absolutely chucking it down right now, and there's even some hailstones. But thankfully, I'm inside and I'm with you to share from God's Word today again. Today's theme is the theme of identity, and we're going to look at Mark chapter 1, verses 9 to 13. It's now May, and my 30th birthday is coming up at the end of May. By the time you get to my age, well, your identity is pretty much been formed. In fact, most scholars would suggest that the teenage years are the most pivotal when it comes to forming your identity, which is perhaps why so many of us as teenagers struggle to get to grips with who we are. I don't know about you, but as a teenager, I found myself looking around at everybody else and thinking to myself, I wish I was just a bit more like them. So let me ask you today, what is your identity? What is your identity based on? No doubt, as you think about the answer to that question, you'll think about family and friends. You'll probably think about where you were born and where you live. You'll maybe consider the school that you go to and the subjects that you're good at. Then you maybe move on to think about hobbies and skills that you have. You probably think about your likes and your dislikes as well, and maybe even your hopes and your dreams for the future. So much stuff comes into play when we think about our identity, especially in those teenage years. Therefore, it's interesting that the Bible doesn't actually tell us that much about Jesus' childhood or his years as a teenager or even as a young adult. There are only a few incidents recorded in the entire Bible. It's not until he is nearly 30, around my age, that he makes his dramatic entrance onto the public stage. Mark chapter 1, verses 9 to 13 says this. At that time, Jesus came from Nazareth in Galilee and was baptized by John in the Jordan. Just as Jesus was coming up out of the water, he saw heaven being torn open and a spirit descending on him like a dove. And a voice came from heaven. You are my son whom I love. With you I am well pleased. At once the Spirit sent him out into the wilderness, and he was in the wilderness for 40 days, being tempted by Satan. Given the lack of details regarding Jesus' formative years, there's lots of speculation about how he coped with finding out that he was the Son of God. Did he always know? Was it something that he discovered slowly? Did he struggle to come to terms with his identity? We'll never really know the answer. However, what we do know is that at his baptism, his identity is clearly revealed. God says, You are my son whom I love. With you I am well pleased. After his baptism, Jesus went into the wilderness and was tempted. Knowing his identity undoubtedly helped him resist the temptation that he faced. And the same is true for us as well. Knowing that our identity in Christ is secure, well, that will help us resist temptation. Because of what Jesus has achieved for us through his life, death, resurrection, and ascension, if we choose to associate ourselves with him, well, then we too become children of God. We can own God's words for ourselves. You're my child whom I love. With you I am well pleased.